everybody, this is Juliana Forero and this is Artist Talks. Today we're speaking with three of the artists that are participating in the exhibition, The Space Between Us. I'm happy to welcome Phoenix, Alicia Rodriguez, and Carlos Romaguera. When we are organizing exhibitions and when we put this call for artists, we don't know what is coming in, we don't know what the artists are going to be submitting. So we're very curious to know what was your reaction when you saw the call for entries that said a space between us, and what made you submit the pieces that you submitted in this call. So I'm going to start with Phoenix.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me as part of the exhibit and also for this opportunity to share with everyone. I was inspired because the topic originally was about space exploration, celebrating landing on the moon and all that stuff. So in the last couple of years, I have really developed a passion to photograph astrophotography, night photography. So I went through my collection of images and I came up with the Milky Way over the Keys. To me, that was so important because it's local and yet it's our home galaxy. So it's like saying home sweet home, which to me is part about the space between us. We're all in the same universe together.
What was really interesting to see your photo as part of the selection is that it does put us in perspective of where we are, like the space, looking at the Milky Way and how tiny we are in that micro and macro scale. So I was really happy when Andrea Hoffman, the juror, selected your piece.
Thank you.
How about you, Alicia? What made you submit to this call?
I submitted a sculpture made of glass, of fused glass. And when you made the call, and I learned that it was about the man landing on the moon, I thought about how will we see our space from space. But then when we got this COVID, it became more clear for me that it was the space between us is the space between us. And that's why the sculpture has this mesh, that is, we all inside of a mesh, we all have connections one with the other. And then it has this, plate of Milky Way. So it's something between and the space between us that we're living now. It's something in between there. And the glass, I think, that talks very much of our fragility as human beings in space and in the space now, in our space now, my space with you, my space with everybody. I think that's what moved me with this sculpture.
And Carlos, how about you? I mean, you have a large piece. Tell us about what made you share that piece with us.
Well, it's interesting because this piece I made it basically of two persons having an intercourse on the water in a blue moon. And it turned out that now it's in an exhibition that asks, where we are, what we are, and how we can put ourselves in perspective of the universe. Since I was little, I wanted to be an astrophysicist. So it's kind of very interesting. And this piece is kind of going to the wound. We want to go back home, and home is here and it's there. I practice the Tao and that's have helped me to understand why and who I am. And this piece bring you to space like floating, you know, because it's inside the water. But before we went to the moon, we was on water trying to know how we could adapt over there and walk about there. So it has come to me like a realization, because this piece hasn't been exhibited before. You know, I have put it in a friend of mine, and I know why I made it because of this. You know, it's being in the right place, right moment at the right time.
And what I really enjoy about your piece is because of the large format, it depending on where you stand facing it, you read it differently. Like if you stand very close, because you have the details of, you know, these little dots, you read it and you could start seeing galaxies and the space. And when you step backwards is when you start seeing the two figures and this dance among them or between them. So I really appreciate it. And I wanted to know, is there a difference in terms of size? Do you always work that large size?
I work at different sizes. And in these pieces is interesting because it's a cornerstone. In this piece, I work the painting as I used to, okay? And the dots is a technique that I developed since 1999, because I made an exhibition that it was called Time. I studied time in different aspects, okay? So, because we were gonna change century, okay? So I live very near the coast. So I paint this painting that was surrealistic, like Dali. And I said, that's not me. Then I walk up on the water and I say, well, if I'm gonna talk time, I have to talk where life started. And life started on the beach. So I saw the sand and I had to develop a technique that I could emulate the sand. And this technique came out. And I have been working with the dots since that, okay? I have a piece that is called On the Border. And it's like you seeing a piece of a galaxy with a lot of dots, and then the emptiness of black matter. Because right now we are studying the black matter. That's the next step to develop the map of the universe. Okay, and there is more dark matter than light. Let's put it that way. But the thing is that we have to stay in the light, and my pieces always go for that, to get out of the darkness toward the light. Like Platon used to say that we come in a cave and we want to see the creation, we have to get out of the cave and see the light. So basically that part of my work. I'll deal with light, basically.
In talking about light, I mean, Phoenix, with your long exposure photography and your photography in general, has it been affected now that we're living in enclosure? COVID really changed our way of working for most of us. How did this affected your photographic practice?
Well, as a nature and wildlife photographer who travels the country to national parks and also to Europe, obviously that's been curtailed at this point, but it doesn't mean that my art practice and business is not still flourishing. For my personal practice, I've become a backyard beauties photographer, I'm calling it. I'm developing a new series, and people seem to really love it. People are asking for prints of things that are right there, but showing them maybe in a different way, really helping you to stop. And my technique is always to isolate the subject, and as Carlos referenced, to focus. I mean, it's all about the light and bringing that light at the physical light and the light in the beings. In this case, they could be a rare butterfly, it could be a desert rose, bringing that light from them out. It's like the soul of the subject. That's really where I come from. and then also bringing that beauty and piece of nature into our lives. So I've made it a practice during this time in particular to focus even on my social media, sharing images of beauty every day. And then there's so much else to do. I've got probably over 8,000 images to keep editing.
Alicia, for the exhibition, you submitted a piece that is made of glass, but I know that you work in other media. Has COVID affected your practice in any way? Are you exploring new mediums or new thematics?
Yes, it has affected me a lot because, as you know, I'm a conceptual artist and I work my inside with, I haven't been making physical work for these months. What I've been working is in installations, more in investigation. I'm investigating more myths from Greece and getting more into Jung, the psychiatrist, and seeing about dreams, and I'm getting more insight because it really has affected me, not only in my work, it has affected me in my psyche and in my world, the way I feel. And yes, I'm getting into space, using space, and probably I'll have for the end of the year, I'll have 3 or 4 installations written and described to be used, to be put up.
And Carlos, how about you? Has this COVID-19 experience affected your body of work?
Oh, it has been kind of going back to the wound to try to see where I am, because I have been working fast and I didn't analyze where I am. And now I have been kind of recollecting my old paint pieces from 50 years or 40 years back and enjoying to see what is coming out, because the 26th of March, I had an exhibition that was suspended for later in Puerto Rico. And in April 7, I was going to open in New York. So both of them were canceled to when it can be done. So it has been quite interesting to deal with my inside, to stay focused and understand that this will pass on, but it will help to create new stuff. So I'm happy in a way. And because of your being so incredible to continue with the exhibition, I'm glad. And I think it works so they can get out of the closest spaces and be free and more happy.
Wonderful. Well, I think that this concludes our artist talk for today. So I want to thank Phoenix, Alicia Rodriguez, and Carlos Romaguera for joining us today. And I also want to thank you for tuning in and watching today's artist talk. Thank you. Bye.